Are you new to historical wargaming and just can't quite find the right colour to paint your models? Or you're just looking for some cool military themed paints to add that extra level of realism to your models? Well, I'm going to be taking a look at the new Army Painter historical paint sets. What are they like? Are they any good? Well, stay tuned. I'm Peachy and this is Peachy Tips. So recently, the Army Painter have had a deluge of paint sets, whether that's the John Blanche paint set, Infinity paint set, or recently I discovered Battletech paint sets. Content for that incoming, by the way. So their recent set is an historically themed paint set for World War II. So it's covering Americans, Germans, and British of that period. Now, these paints have been heavily researched to match the gear and uniforms of that period, researched by Dr. Stephen Bull, a well-regarded historian in this particular field as well. So what are they like? Well, what I'm going to do now is look at each of the sets and just give a quick rundown of what's in them, and then I'm going to move on to some painting, which is going to be fun because I love painting. Yeah. So first up, we have the British paint set. Now, each set comes with 20 paints. About 11 of these are unique to each set, but there are going to be about 9 duplicates across the 3 sets. Now, if you're just buying one, that's not really going to bother you. But if you are buying all 3 because you've got lots of stuff to paint, that might seem like a bit of a snagging point. I would say it's not actually, because these duplicated paints are actually quite useful and very common paints. So you'll probably find you use them a lot anyway. So having all 3 sets and having duplicates of these is not going to be that much of a snag, at least from my experience of painting. Across the British set, you'll find an array of drabs moving from dark to light, some military greens, perfect for webbing, camo, and the green berets of the Royal Marines. A selection of beiges and some lovely reds too for officers, and of course the iconic Red Devil beret, because it looks wicked. Now, the duplicated colours are going to be things like black, white, steel, rifle brown. Rifle brown, by the way, is a very nice brown. There's a lot of browns in the Army Painter range, but this seems like bob on. I mean, obviously it's been researched by a dude who knows his stuff, but I like it. I'm a big fan of rifle brown. Just thought I'd throw that in there. There's a cool rust effect paint, and then 4 shades such as black, brown, military green, and then a flesh tone for obviously doing skin and stuff. So you've got quite a good mix of shades in there, a nice technical paint because you're going to get rust, especially if you're painting tanks, and then just some really useful paints that you're probably going to find you'll use a lot, like the steel, the rifle brown, black and white. So again, like I said before, I think these are going to be quite common paints and you'll get through them quite quickly anyway. So next up is the German set, and it comes with an array of very pretty looking tones. More specifically, and finally, field grey. And that comes in 3 tones as well, which is perfect. And those tones move from a dark field grey to a mid field grey to a light field grey. You've also got a couple of other greys in there. So you've got something called tanker grey and strap grey, which is pretty much like a really dark and very handy charcoal colour. So if you want like a really nice off black, that's perfect for that as well. Great for helmets, great for like dry brushing over black and stuff. So pleased with that one. And then some very useful camo tones for things like your Fallschirmjäger and other such units of that period. And of course the duplicated set as well. Now, the American set sees even more useful greens and olives, again in a variety of tones, a punchy blue, red and yellow, and some fleshes as well. That's something to point out. Each set comes with its own tone of, I guess, Caucasian flesh. So if you get all 3 sets, you get some nice sort of like options for doing different skin tones. But obviously there's plenty of colours in there if you want to opt for different skin tones as well. But it's quite nice not getting the same flesh tone in each set, because that can be quite annoying sometimes. So having a nice selection of those, I'd say, is a good move, actually, from like weathered flesh to rosy flesh. Even Paratrooper tan, I use that a lot when I'm painting my skin, because I don't know, I really like it. Reminds me of, I guess, Cadian flesh tone, or what was the old one? Talon flesh that they used to do with the old foundation paints. It reminds me of that. I like it. So that's the colours you get in the set. So what I'm going to do now is move on to painting my first model, which is going to be a British Paratrooper. I've picked this model for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is a Paratrooper has kind of a lot of gear and equipment that's pretty transferable to the other units, but obviously they have their own unique camo pattern as well, so it kind of made sense to cover those. And I like Paras. I think they're mega. And with the recent and very sad passing of Paul Sawyer, I decided to paint up the charity model Wargames did of him, which is Sergeant Sawyer, a Paratrooper. Makes sense. So I thought I'd paint this guy up in commemoration of the man himself. So let's crack on and paint a British Paratrooper, Sergeant Sawyer. Starting from a light undercoat, what I'm going to do is get some light battle dress. So all I'm going to do is apply this quite heavily. This is mainly going to be for the things like the webbing and also part of the camo pattern on his smock as well. But I mean, you can undercoat whatever colour you want to. I've just used a nice light beige because it just means I don't have to do as many coats. Then I'm going to pick out his trousers using dark battle dress. Now, if you're doing a standard British Tommy, then you'll want to use this on the tunic as well. I mean, you can thin it down a little bit, but you know, it's just good, solid paint, so the coverage is really good. Even across a dark colour, I imagine this will go over in one coat as well. Now for the camo pattern, what I'm going to do is use webbing green. Now you'd probably want to use this for the actual webbing on your normal Tommies, but this is going to be used as my camo pattern for the smock of the British Paratrooper. Again, I'm not being particularly precise, maybe the pattern's not exactly historically accurate, but it looks like a camo pattern, and that's what matters. Something else I like to do, certainly seeing as I've got quite a lot of that light webbing colour on webbing as well as the pattern, where I get close to straps or belts and stuff like that, what I'll probably do is make sure any green I use will be around there, and also the brown, which I'll come to in a moment. But then it just makes the actual webbing stand out a little bit more. And in places, yeah, move from like a large brush to a smaller brush, whatever works for you. I like to swap and change between the two. Now for the brown colour on the camo pattern, I'm going to use Mud Splatter. It's a little bit richer than the fatigue colour, so the dark drab that I use for the trousers, and also helps make it look a little bit different and sets it apart from the trousers as well. Again, where there's like some straps and stuff, I'm also going to place that there, so there's less cream touching where the webbing is and makes it a little bit less disjointed. Obviously in some places I'm going to go over the green and I might go over the beige a bit more, and then you can always correct if you think that it needs a little bit more green here or a little bit more beige there, then you can always adjust that after once you've pretty much placed most of the pattern down. Yeah, just work your way around, take your time, have some fun. It's a bit of camo pattern, innit? Now once that's all applied, I'm just going to go around and tidy up any webbing that I might have got a little bit of like green or brown on, and maybe if I feel that there needs to be some more creamy bits on the camo pattern as well. So really just work your way around and tidy up. Then it's onto some metallics, so I'm going to use steel here, so it's not particularly a dark gunmetal, but it works for what I want it to do. So I'm just going to apply that all over the Sten gun, make sure it's nicely coated. Obviously with a slight undercoat, I only need one coat. Which is ideal. And of course don't forget to do any buttons, whether that's on the pistol, the webbing, the smock, and any other buckles, maybe on straps and stuff like that. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. Now I'm going to move on to the flesh, and for this I'm going to be using Fair Skin, which is the British colour. It's a nice light colour as well, so very pale, ideal for people living in the United Kingdom because we don't get much sun. And also with that light undercoat, I'm only going to need to do one colour, but let's say you use grey or something else, then you might want to do a couple of coats of that. But yeah, just get the face and the hands coated or whatever. Then for the iconic Red Devil beret, I'm going to use Beret Maroon, and it just looks the business. It really does. It is the right kind of tone, and as soon as that red beret was picked out, I was like, yep, looks like a para to me. So absolutely amazing colour. Now for any black details, I'm going to get matte black. So you've got the little bit of black detail that goes around the beret. I'm also going to pick out the glasses. I slightly thinned it down for the glasses just so it runs around a bit better. I can always tidy up with flesh after. But yeah, just be mindful when you are doing the glasses on this particular model, you will need to do some corrections. And of course, if you do make any mistakes, just grab yourself whatever flesh tone you've used and just tidy up. Now for the book, I wasn't entirely sure what colour to do, so in the end I just opted for black. So I thought it makes sense. I'll leave the pages that nice beige colour that the undercoat is. But yeah, pretty much a big black book. And of course, I'm going to pick out the boots in black as well. I slightly thinned it down so some of that beigey colour can show through a little bit, so it looks a little bit worn and tatty. But yeah, black boots look great. Then it's my favourite stage, which is to coat the model in strong tone. Now, strong tone doesn't come in the set. I know this. I'm a creature of habit. I do like strong tone. You could use black, you could use brown, you could use military green, but this kind of sits somewhere between the black and the brown. It's kind of like a really dark, well, it's a strong tone, and it does what I need it to do. So that's why I've used that. Just going to get a small brush, soak up any excess, move it around. Also on the skin, because it might make it too dark, I just drop a little bit of water onto my brush and then just move that off the face a little bit more so it's not as intense. And then if you want to, doing some highlighting, you can move on to that. But I'm going to be using light battle dress as the highlight. Now I'm doing this on the actual webbing because I've used that as a base coat. With the shades, darkened it down slightly. So using this colour as a highlight actually adds that a little bit more contrast to it as well. So you can get obviously two tones from one paint really after it's been shaded. It's perfect. And just work your way around, picking out whatever you feel is necessary. I mostly tend to just go for the things that stand out the most or look like the light's going to touch it more. So whether that's straps or the belt or whatever, you don't have to go mad. Mainly just tying up and base coating really. Then for the camo pattern, I'm just going to get some webbing green again. I don't really need to use it for the beige or the brown. It's just I felt the green needed a little bit more punch. So all I'm doing, I'm not really highlighting, I'm just relayering some of those sections so it's a little bit less dark and drab. Again, not super necessary, just felt like it needed doing. Now I'm just going to tidy up the trousers using dark battle dress. This is kind of like a highlight stage, I guess. It's more just picking up the raised areas with that base coat, very much like we did on the webbing. And that same rule applies with the beret as well. Again, it's adding more punch to the red. In some places a little bit dark, in other places a little bit lighter, depending on where you're applying it. But yeah, just tidying up with that base colour after you washed it just really helps add some extra definition to your model. Also, in some places the metallics might be a bit dull, so if you wanted to add a little bit more punch to those, just go around picking out the buttons. I didn't really bother with the gun, I want that to be quite dull, but I felt like the glasses, the buttons needed doing. It made a lot of sense. And of course, that iconic Paratrooper winged parachute symbol. Then for the skin, I'm just going to go back over and tidy that up as well. Again, just keeping to the extremities, cheeks, nose, lips, ears, knuckles, that kind of thing. I'm not going to go super mad. Like anything, when you shade it, it will get a bit blotchy here and there, so some tidying up is required, but not necessary. This is just a stage I like to do. More appropriate when you're doing NCOs and officers, I guess. Then, because I've not had a chance to try it yet, I'm going to get mid-battle dress. I'm going to use that as the highlight for the fatigues. I mean, that's the next obvious step up anyway, so it made sense to use it. But I just wanted to give it a go, see what it looked like. I mean, you could dry brush this if you're doing like normal British infantry, like the Tommies. You could just probably dry brush this colour over all those fatigues because you have the tunic and the trousers. But with Sergeant Soy, it just made sense just to do a little highlight here and there on some of the creases of his trousers. This step I tend to do if I feel like some areas just need a little bit more definition. It's not a important step, it's just something I like to do. Sometimes between like the belts and some other details, or like the hand and the sleeves, it just needs a little bit more definition, so just thinning down a little bit of black and run it between really helps. And then it's on to highlighting the skin. Now I'm using opal skin here. That is not a colour that you get in the set, that is just an extra colour that I had. You can always mix white with your fair skin if you wanted to, if you don't have that. But yeah, it's just a slightly lighter colour to pick out on the extremities, again like the nose, knuckles, cheeks, etc. And also to knock it back a little bit, and I've not had a chance to try it yet, I thought I'll give warm skin tone a go. It has a bit of a yellowiness to it, but that's fine. So I just applied that all over the skin. Again, you could make it a little bit thinner, or instead of using strong tone, you could use this instead. It's entirely up to you. Now for the base, because I want this guy to time with the rest of my World War II stuff, which is all wintry themed, I'm going to get some Brigade Grey, and now I'm going to apply that all over the base. I slightly thin it down so I can get easily around the feet and not splodge on the feet. But if I did splodge on the feet, then all I need to do is just dry off my brush and then just remove any excess, or add a little bit of water to it, and that helps remove it as well. But yeah, it will happen, and eventually you can coat it with snow when it comes to doing that section. Also, a little effect I like to do, so it looks like snow's clumped around the shoes and around the base of the trousers and stuff like that. I get a bit of sponge, and I just sponge on that Brigade Grey as well. I did like my Americans in the other videos with that winter theme, so I'm just going to keep this guy tidy with them as well. You can do it with a sponge, or you can do it by brush. It's entirely up to you, whatever works. And then it's just a simple matter of basing it with whatever you want. Obviously I'm going for snow, so I'm going to get some snow texture. So I'm just going to apply that all over, mound it up in places, make it a little bit thinner in others. But by using that Brigade Grey underneath, it's not going to be too much of a jump as well. I don't need to put sand down because it's just big, thick snow. And then just applying some clumps of grass, whatever grass you like to use, whatever colour. I quite like the beige stuff because it looks a little bit like dead grass during winter. Yeah, it's entirely up to you how you want to do it. This just felt right and looked cool. Helps the model stand out as well. And when I've applied all the grass as well, I like to just apply a couple of little bits of snow on top of the grass so it looks like it's settled, whether that's a bit of a snowdrift like I'm doing with that one, so it's a bit more buried underneath the snow, or just a little bit subtly here placed on top of some of the strands of grass. There we are, the mighty Sergeant Soy is done, and I'm really proud of this paint job, and I can't wait to paint more Paratroopers. These colours really are the business, and this guy's going to fit perfectly into my 0200 hours Saboteur squad. Speaking of which, I'm going to need some sentries to paint up, so let's grab the Wargames Atlantic German sentries and use these German paints on them, see what they look like. So for my German, I began with a grey undercoat, so again, any grey will do. It's up to you what kind of colour you really use. It could be black, it could be dark grey, it could be anything, but I went with grey. And the first colour I'm going to use is dark field grey, and this is for the tunic. So I'm going to heavily apply that all over. I'm not too fussed when it goes on the straps because, well, I'm going to paint over those later anyway. So I'm doing this as a slightly thinned down coat, and then just going over. In some places I might need to do a second coat if it just needs it. Then I'm going to move on to strap grey. Now you would think you'd use this for straps, and you can do, but I quite like the colour for the dark style helmet. So that makes sense because I'm actually going to do my straps black. Same with the boots. But yeah, perfect colour for the helmet. So speaking of black, I'm now going to base coat my boots in black. I'm just going to leave those flat for the moment. I'll give them a little treatment later on instead of highlighting them. So yeah, just pick out all the boots in matte black. And then any straps, I'm also going to pick those in black as well. If I had any pouches, like ammo pouches, they'd also get picked out in black. I'm just going to work my way around, picking out all his straps. So whether that's like the vertical ones, his horizontal belt, or that nice little Y strap at the back as well, they're all going to get picked out. Might need to do a second coat depending on how thin you've done it. I'll also do the gun strap as well in black, and of course his chin strap on his helmet. That will be doing too. Now I'm using Commando Green, which is a British colour here, and I'm using that for the sort of insignia and ranking markings that will go on his epaulets and also his collar. It just seemed like the right tone, so it made sense. So if you do get all three sets, you'll find some of these transferable across each other. So yeah, I'm just picking that out now. Now for his Kar 98 rifle, I'm going to be picking that out in the beautiful, beautiful rifle brown. Love this colour. So I'm just going to work my way around picking out all the beautiful woodwork on this lovely, lovely rifle. I'm going over the metal bits as well because I can paint those later, because I'm not entirely sure which bits are metal and which bits are wood. Speaking of the metal details, I'm now going to work on those. So I'm using steel for that. Again, I wasn't entirely sure what bits were metal for the Kar 98, so I pulled up some reference as I was doing it just to see which bits were metal, and if I did make any mistakes I can always tidy it back over with brown anyway. So yeah, sometimes when you are doing these kind of things, it's like that's metal, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, and that's wood, is it? Oh, sure. Okay. So yeah, reference is key if you want to make it look historically accurate, if you care about that. And then after that, I'm just going to pick out buttons and buckles and all that kind of stuff. If you've got grenades or whatever, pick those out too. And just a quick tidy up on the gun itself, where I may have got a bit of silver by accident. Fairly standard and straightforward. Then I'm going to use weathered skin. This is the colour that comes with the Germans, so this is their German flesh. So I'm just going to paint that on his face. Now normally when I do my winter troops, I tend to not bother painting their hands, but in this one I thought I'll paint the hands, makes sense. So yeah, I'm just picking those out again because it's a bit grey. Probably need to do a couple of coats. Now for the hair, I'm going to use dark olive. That is an American colour again, so I'm just cross-pollinating sets here. For the trousers, I'm going to pick those out with uniform grey. Again, this is not a specific German set, but it's the right kind of colour that felt perfect for the trousers that I was doing. So I picked those out, and then I realised I needed to do a second coat just in places here on the tunic before I washed them, because it was just a little bit wishy-washy around the back. Sometimes you notice that later on in the painting process. Then I'm going to coat all over with strong tone. Again, creature of habit, like strong tone. It kind of ties in with all the other stuff I've done and the test models, so I could use the other ones, but I wanted to use strong tone because I like it. It's my favourite, so I'm applying that all over. If you have a colour and you do like it, just because there's others there and they make sense, it's up to you. Do what you feel comfortable doing. I think that's the key. Now, once the shade's over and it's all dry, you can leave it at that, but what I'm going to do here is just do some tidying up first of all. This could often act as your only highlighting if you really wanted to do that. It's a really nice way of just getting some extra punch from that initial colour after it's been shaded. Really good way of emphasising some details on the model. But yeah, I'm just going around on the tunic, just tidying that back up. Not going particularly mad, not being particularly precise either, which is also the beauty of it. Same for the trousers. Going to use that uniform grey because that's the colour I base coated them. So I went my way around applying that. Tied up the helmet. I mean, you could leave the helmet quite dull, but I wanted a little bit more punch on it, especially around the dome part at the top. But again, not super necessary. So now I'm going to move on to my main highlight on the tunic, which is going to be midfield grey. So this is such a nice colour. So it's nice to get these kind of tones. I can foresee these being really, really good for Sons of Horus as well. So if you are doing Sons of Horus, this might be a really, really nice way of getting those painted. But yeah, I'm just picking out any like little raised areas, like folds in the cloth. Now, if you are new to painting cloth and stuff, if you're not like a experienced hobbyist, just highlight the bits you see. Don't make up highlights that don't exist, like folds that aren't there. Just keep to what you can see, and then you'll get less stressed. Because if you become an expert painter and you do it for years and you do exhibition painting, you often see they make folds from some highlights and this, that and the other, because they know, well, they've got that experience, they do a lot of studying, this, that and the other. But for yourself, if you're new, just highlight what's there, don't go mad. To be honest, I should have done this when I was just tying up the trousers, but I'm just going to highlight up the straps now. Again, this is not something I normally do on rank and file, but because I've only got a handful of these sentries, I thought it would look quite nice to make them look a little bit more beautiful. So I thought I'd highlight the straps. So that's just any kind of black details, other than the boots. I'm not going to bother with the boots because they're going to get a little special treatment to make it look super shiny at the end. Tying up the skin, again standard, just pick out any raised areas like cheeks, lips, chin, nose, knuckles, that kind of thing. You don't have to go mad. Also, we're just going to quickly highlight up his trousers. Again, I'm using a slightly lighter grey here, which is ash grey. Again, that's the slightly lighter tone to the uniform grey. In some places, I just need to add a little bit more black on those straps, just for a bit more definition. And also between areas as well, like I've done on previous models, just for a bit more definition. Again, not a necessary step, but something I like to do. So next up, I'm going to highlight using amber skin. This is just one of the standard Army Painter skins. I suppose in hindsight, I could have like mixed and matched the ones that come in the actual military sets. So my bad. No sense of foresight. I guess creature of habit crept in. I like amber skin. Look quite nice on weathered skin as well. I'm now going to tidy up with the rifle using rifle brown. Again, I'm going to do some little streaky patterns so it looks a bit like woodwork. But it's just mainly just add a bit more definition. And then I'm going to get some white and pick out the unit and insignia markings. So whether that's like piping on the side of the epaulets, or those little markings on his collar as well. And then just for a bit of fun, I decided to thin down some strap grey, give him a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. I'm not sure that that's German regulation, but I thought it made him look badass. And then for my special effect on the boots to make them look super shiny, I say special effect, it's not. It's just a bit of hard coat or gloss varnish, whatever you have at hand. Anything glossy, just paint it over. You don't even need to highlight it. You just get really nice shiny boots. They look perfect. Honestly, I'm super chuffed with how this guy came up. The colours look great. He looks like a German of that period. And I got so excited, I painted up some more soldiers in the same colour scheme, ready for my future or upcoming sneaky stabby game. Also, I really want to point out having a range of field greys is just really useful. Before I'd mix them and I get frustrated because I never quite get the right colour, so I'm really chuffed that these now exist as paints in my painting arsenal. Right, last up is the US paint set. Now, if you watched the channel before, you will have seen me paint up a couple more US miniatures in the past. I did an American in winter gear as well as a US Ranger, so if you want to know how to paint those, the video is up here, or videos is up here. They're not using these new paint sets because they weren't out then, but you know, it's quick ways of getting those guys onto the battlefield. But for this particular guide, I thought, you know what? You know, if you know me, you know I like Paratroopers. I've already done a Red Devil, I've done a Fallschirmjäger, so it makes sense to do one of the new Wargames plastic US Airborne. Now, if you are looking for an alternative way to paint your US Paratroopers, as well as more information on these cool paints, then go check out James from Wargames Illustrated on the channel up here. He does a big discussion and obviously paints up an American Airborne guy as well. And also, speaking of Wargames Illustrated, in May's issue, they'll also be covering the stuff we're talking about here, as well as showing some sexy photos of my things as well as James's stuff as well. So do go check him out because he knows a lot about this kind of stuff. Much like the British soldier, I'm going to start with a nice light beige undercoat. And then what I'm going to do is get medium drab and apply this all over. I guess this is a mid-tone colour for the drabs, but it made sense to use this for the actual Paratrooper outfit itself. So I'm just going to apply that all over. Not being particularly neat here. I'm just mainly trying to fill in all the fatigue, so the tunic or top, and then his trousers. But if I get on other stuff, I'm not bothered because I can paint over that. It's the beauty of paint, you can paint over it. Now for his webbing, after looking at like some pictures and stuff like that, some look like they're beige, like the canvas colour, and some look green. I opted for green, and light beige had a bit of a greeny tone to it, so I'm using light beige, just going to go around all those bits. So whether that's like the pouches, the rucksack, the straps, he's also got some little ties on his legs, as well as the sheath for his dagger. So I'm just going to pick those all out in the same colour. Keeps it simple. I like simple. And keeping with the drab colours, I'm now going to move on to dark drab, but I'm going to use this for his elbow pads and his knee pads. So again, on the imagery and looking at pictures, it's kind of like a dark green kind of colour, which makes a lot of sense. So I'm just picking out all those elbow patches and knee patches with this colour. So I'm basically using all the drabs just in a very different way, as simple base coats for the uniform. I guess it depends on what American colour scheme you're doing. Now, also for the helmet, I'm using dark drab, but I decided to thin it down a bit because he's got like some leaves and other like netting details on the top. So I thought if I thin it down, some of that colour will show through. So it's like 1 part paint, 1 part water. For his BAR, so his Browning automatic rifle, I'm now going to just paint that in steel, pretty much most of it. Now there is some wood detail on a lot of these guns, so like whether that's a Thompson machine gun, the carbine or whatever, I paint them silver first and then I worry about that after. Also don't forget things like the grenades, like buttons, strap buckle things, so I'm just going around picking those out. Now for the boots, I'm using boot brown. Makes a lot of sense because it's brown and it's called boot brown, and I know Paratroopers have some iconic boots, so it made sense to pick those out in boot brown. I normally paint my boots black because it looks cool, but I decided to do it brown with these. I said brown and boots quite a lot. And for the wooden furniture on his BAR, I'm going to use rifle brown. So you could, if you wanted to, use the same as the boot brown or vice versa, but because I've got the colours, they're at hand and they look nice, I've decided to keep to what they're designed for. So yeah, just get all those random bits here and there, so whether that's handles, the stock or whatever, I'm just going to pick those out in rifle brown. For his face, I'm going to use Rose's Skin. 2 fleshes come in the set. There's Rose's Skin and Paratrooper Tan. I do like Paratrooper Tan, but I've not used Rose's Skin yet, so that's why I'm using it now. And because I've got that light undercoat, it just goes in one coat, so I don't have to do multiples. But again, if you're using greys or black undercoats, then you might need to do a couple. And then classic Peach, get some strong tone and just douse the model all over. Now, I'm probably expecting people wondering, why have you not used the other tones, Peach? You've done this 3 times now, you've used the same tone. Because most of my models are all using the same tone across my existing painted stuff. I want to keep them consistent, so if I started using different ones, I don't know, I just feel they look different. Now, for a quick way of highlighting this model, I'm not going to go mad. I'm just going to get some canvas, which is like the light tone colour. It's almost a beige. I'm going to dry brush this all over the webbing, the trousers, the boots, this, that, and the helmet. But if you want to, you can always use it as like a little edge highlight and pick out little bits of cloth here and there. It's entirely up to you, but I thought dry brush was quick, efficient, and, well, I'm going to do a fair few of these guys. Also, don't forget to type the face. Now, for the 101st markings, I didn't have any decals, so I decided to freehand it. I thought that'd be quite fun. So just doing a little shield design, and then I'm just doing like a little curved line above it. Bit like a rainbow shape, I suppose, but that's going to be where the words will go for Airborne, and then the shield design will be where the actual sigil for the Screaming Eagles will go. But yeah, just do a couple of coats, just make sure it's nice and black, basically. I'm also going to use that black to fill out any of the details on the model, whether that's like the mouth, put some slits on the eyes. Also, as you've seen on the previous paint guides I've done, I also like to help just add a little bit of definition between different details, whether that's hand to sleeve, or if just something needs a bit more punch and a crack or whatever. So I'm just running around doing that. Don't do it all over, I'll just do a little bit here and there. Now for the Screaming Eagle design, I'm just going to get some white and do kind of like a little bit of a dollop. That's the best way to do it. It looks like an egg. And then just onto the side, I'm going to get a little bit yellow and then make that look like a beak, and then just do some dots to represent the words Airborne. From a distance, it might just look like the Screaming Eagle design. For his flag, the US flag, I'm going to start with, well, appropriately, flag red. So I'll do a couple of coats of that, so just so it's nice and strong. Get a nice sort of rectangular shape going on. Again, you might need to do 2 coats. And then I'm going to pick out the stars and bars using some white as well. Now, I'm not going to do all 13. This is like a sort of representation of it. So just do a couple, and then I'm just going to block out the blue field for the stars in the corner. So I'm using Ensign Blue here. Very nice colour, by the way. And once that's done, I'm just going to do some little dots for the stars. I'm not doing 50, like I didn't do 13 bars. And if you do need to tidy up or straighten out the edges, just get some of that medium drab. Again, I'm really pleased with how this guy came out. I didn't have any of the transfers, so that's why I did a little bit of freehand, but I really enjoyed doing that. It was really good fun and quite straightforward from a distance, obviously for someone that's been painting a fair amount of time. I also painted up a Pathfinder because that was my test model initially, and I just had a little bit of fun doing the face paint on that. Probably should have included that as part of a stage for the video, so my bad for not doing that. It was a test model. I was trying some stuff out, getting my old eyes working again. So what do I think to these historical paint sets? Well, if you're new to historical wargaming and painting, they're perfect. They're going to help you out enormously, because not only do you have the right colours, but the front of the boxes also have, well, a variety of uniforms that you can just use as reference. Obviously, we can do Google searches and stuff like that, but it's just there. Everything's there. And it's been researched, like we said at the start, by Dr. Stephen Bull. So it's, as a newbie into the hobby, this kind of stuff is ideal. Like when I was a kid and I used to look at old Airfix boxes and stuff like that, it would tell me what kind of enamel paints I'd need, and they'd all have the relevant colours like olive drab and khaki and field grey and this, that and the other. You see, the big problem nowadays is a lot of paint ranges tend to have wild and strange named paints that don't really mean anything. So take Citadel with Incubi Darkness. What does that mean? If you don't know anything about Incubi, it's a nonsensical name. So having like actual names that mean something like olive drab or webbing green or, I don't know, life jacket yellow, it is what it is. It's the yellow colour of a life jacket. It's perfect. I know where I stand. Field grey. I know what field grey looks like because I've been looking for that for years. When I used to do old Airfix models, you know, they'd have those colours at the back. They'd make sense. I'd go to a shop and get the relevant enamel paint. So I think these sets are going to help enormously for not only people new into historical wargaming, but someone like myself who's been doing it for years. I don't have to mix those colours. I think they're perfect. I'd also like to observe these paints are really handy if you're just doing modern day stuff or wacky sci-fi colour schemes, whether that's like Cadians for your Astra Militarum, or you're doing some Infinity, I don't know, Ariadne or Hack-Islam or whatever. They're just going to be perfect for that. And I've got my fingers crossed that more historical sets will come out in the future, because they're useful. So yeah, I think from an entry level point of view, as well as like any kind of veteran, it's really going to help remove those barriers of like finding the right colours or mixing in this and the other. So there. Personally, I think they're great. Well, thank you for getting this far into the video, and a massive thank you to my patrons for all your support. Look at all these beautiful people coming by. I hope you managed to get something useful from this video, whether that is just finding out about this new range of paints that Army Painter are doing, or if there's been some useful hints and tips for getting your own World War II miniatures onto the tabletop. Maybe a few hacks to do your own weird and wonderful colour schemes. Doesn't matter. Well, regardless, I'm now just going to go off and paint some more, because I have a game planned for 0200 hours, as I mentioned already. So a lot more men will need painting for my sneaky, stabby game that I will film at some point. It's on the cards. I say this for every video, like, oh, I need a new bat report. So I'd also massively apologise for having hay fever. This video took ages to film. If I wasn't sneezing, my eyes were red and streaming. I've taken antihistamine. No one cares, but I'm just saying I have. But yeah, it's hitting hard today. It's the tree pollen, I think, or the grass. It's one of them. It's some form of pollen, and it's in my face, and it won't go away. Hate hay fever. Why is it called hay fever? I don't sit there like smelling hay, do I? Where's the pollen in hay? Everyone's going to tell me there's loads of pollen in hay, Peach. There is. I didn't do no research. I didn't do my research with that comment. I just said it. It came from the heart. Anyway, I'm going to go. And I'm going to blow my nose, and I'm going to cry a bit more because my eyes hurt. Right. Love you all. See you on the next one. Peach out. Achoo.